The crack of thunder jolted Ranger Thomas Reed awake, his hand instinctively reaching for the flashlight beside his bed. Another boom echoed through the mountains, but something was off about the sound. It wasn't thunder, it was too metallic, too artificial. Reed grabbed his jacket and service rifle, stepping out onto the cabin's porch. The October air bit at his exposed skin as his eyes scanned the treeline. A faint purple glow pulsed between the pines about half a mile out. Whatever it was, it definitely wasn't natural. "Dispatch, this is Reed," he spoke into his radio. Only static answered. He tried again, but the usual clear channel remained dead. Something was interfering with the signal. Following his training, Reed shouldered his rifle and began hiking toward the light. The wet leaves muffled his footsteps as he moved carefully through the darkness. As he got closer, the purple glow intensified, casting eerie shadows through the forest. The air crackled with electricity, making the hair on his arms stand on end. Then he saw it, a sleek, silver craft about the size of a small plane had carved a trench through the earth before coming to rest against a massive oak. The vessel's design was like nothing he'd ever seen, with no visible seams or joints. The purple light emanated from what appeared to be a massive crack along its hull. "Hello?" Reed called out, keeping his distance. "Anyone need help?" A section of the craft's surface suddenly rippled like mercury, and a panel slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Reed raised his rifle, heart pounding. A slender figure stumbled out, collapsing to the ground. Even in the dim light, Reed could tell this was no human being. The creature's skin had a silvery sheen, and its proportions were just slightly wrong, limbs too long, head too angular. It wore what looked like armor, though most of it was damaged or missing. As Reed approached cautiously, he noticed something else. The alien's midsection was swollen in a way that was eerily familiar. She was pregnant. The alien's eyes opened, revealing irises that shifted color like oil on water. She spoke, her voice producing sounds no human throat could make. Seeing his confusion, she touched a device on her wrist. A soft blue light scanned over Reed. "Please," she said, her words now perfectly understandable though her mouth movements didn't match them. "They will find me soon. Help us." Reed knew he should call this in, should wait for authorities, should follow protocol. But as he looked at the injured alien, her hands protectively cradling her abdomen, he saw something universal, a mother trying to protect her child. "Can you walk?" he asked, lowering his rifle. She nodded weakly. Reed moved to help her up, surprised by how light she was despite her pregnancy. Her skin was fever-hot to the touch. "My cabin's about half a mile back," he said. "We need to get you somewhere safe before anyone else notices that light show." "The ship," she gasped. "It must be hidden." Reed looked at the crashed vessel. "How?" She pressed something on her wrist device again. The ship's surface began to shift, changing color and texture until it perfectly matched the surrounding forest. Within seconds, it was nearly invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. "Impressive," Reed muttered. "Now let's get you inside before." A distant roar echoed through the mountains, a sound similar to the crash that had woken him, but farther away. The alien stiffened in fear. "They're here," she whispered. "Already." Reed didn't wait to find out who they were. Supporting the alien's weight, he began guiding her back toward his cabin as quickly as she could manage. Behind them, more atmospheric booms suggested other craft were entering the area. As they reached the cabin's porch, Reed glanced back at the forest. High above the treeline, dark shapes moved against the stars, searching. He hurried the alien inside, closing and locking the door behind them. "You'll be safe here," he said, helping her to the couch. "I'm Thomas Reed." "I am." She began, then made a series of musical tones no human could replicate. Seeing his expression, she smiled faintly. "You may call me Lena." "And thank you, Thomas Reed." You may have saved not only my life, but the future of my entire species. Reed was about to ask what she meant when another explosion rocked the mountains. Lena's hands tightened around her abdomen as her color-shifting eyes fixed on the ceiling. Whatever was hunting her, it was getting closer. And Reed had just made himself part of her story, for better or worse. The long night was only beginning. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Reed sat by the window, rifle across his lap, watching for any movement in the forest. The night had been tense but quiet after the initial aerial search passed. Lena lay on the couch, her color-shifting eyes closed in fitful sleep. The translator device on her wrist occasionally sparked, damaged in the crash. Reed had done what he could, provided water, blankets, and basic first aid for her visible injuries. But alien biology was well outside his expertise. A soft chime from her wrist device woke her. She sat up carefully, one hand pressed against her swollen abdomen. "The child is safe," she said, noting Reed's concerned look. "Our young are well protected during gestation." She paused, studying him. "You have many questions." Reed nodded. "Let's start with who's hunting you and why." Lena's expression darkened. "My mate was first speaker of the collective, our system's ruling council. He was." She touched her chest in what seemed like a gesture of mourning, assassinated by those who opposed his policies of peaceful contact with other civilizations. "Like Earth?" Reed asked. "Yes. We have watched your world for decades. My mate believed your species was ready for formal diplomatic relations. Others disagreed, seeing humans as too volatile, too dangerous. So they killed him for wanting to talk to us. The opposition faction, led by Command Chief Rixer, used my mate's death to seize power. But they didn't know." She smiled, touching her abdomen. "They didn't know I carried his heir. In our society, a first speaker's firstborn inherits not just title, but certain genetic memories, the accumulated wisdom of generations of leaders." Reed whistled softly. "So that baby you're carrying is the rightful heir to the collective leadership, yes. And possesses knowledge that could expose Rixer's crimes." Her expression hardened. "That is why they hunt us. If this child is born, their revolution fails." "How long until?" Reed gestured at her pregnancy. 3 of your Earth days, perhaps 4. Our gestation accelerates in the final phase." She grimaced. "I had hoped to reach our loyal forces on your moon base, but the attack damaged my ship's navigation." "There's an alien base on the moon?" Reed asked incredulously. "A small observation post, yes. But I cannot contact them, the crash damaged my long-range communicator. And Rixer's forces are blocking all transmissions from this area." Reed ran a hand through his hair, processing everything. "So we need to keep you safe for 4 days, somehow get a message to your people, and avoid the aliens searching the forest. All while keeping this quiet from human authorities who'd probably panic if they knew." "I am sorry to bring this burden to you," Lena said softly. "I had no choice. But you are not safe now. Once they detect your involvement." A high-pitched whine cut through the morning air. Lena stiffened. "Scanner drones. They're beginning a ground search." Reed moved to the window. Small metallic spheres were descending through the trees, purple energy crackling around them. As he watched, one of the drones approached a squirrel. A beam of light struck the creature, which disappeared instantly. "They're not just scanning," he said grimly. "They're eliminating potential hiding places." "How long before they reach the cabin?" "Hours at most," Lena replied. "We need to." She broke off as heavy static suddenly burst from Reed's forgotten radio. Through the interference, a voice spoke, not in English, but in harsh, clicking sounds that made Reed's teeth ache. Lena's face went pale. "That's Rixer." He's ordering the drones to converge on this location. She struggled to stand. We must leave. Now. Reed helped her up, mind racing. The drones were spreading through the forest, cutting off escape routes. His cabin had a cellar, but the scanners would detect them there. They needed a plan, and fast. Because the enemy wasn't just hunting anymore. They were closing in for the kill. Reed grabbed his emergency pack while Lena activated her camouflage technology, her skin shifting to match the cabin's interior. The drones were getting closer, their high-pitched whine now clearly audible through the walls. The river, Reed said, checking his rifle. There's an old mining tunnel beneath the waterfall. The moving water might mask our heat signatures. They slipped out the back door as the first drone crested the tree-line. Reed led them through a narrow deer trail, staying under the densest part of the canopy. Lena moved with surprising grace despite her condition, her adaptive camouflage making her nearly invisible in the dappled forest light. A purple flash lit up the forest behind them, followed by the sound of splintering wood. The cabin. They were destroying it, methodically eliminating any trace of Lena's presence. The roar of the waterfall grew louder as they approached the river. Reed helped Lena navigate the slippery rocks, conscious of every second ticking by. The tunnel entrance was hidden behind the cascade, accessible only via a narrow ledge. "Wait," Lena whispered, grabbing Reed's arm. Her eyes shifted to a deep red. Movement ahead. Through the trees, Reed spotted them, 3 figures in sleek armor, their helmets featuring multiple rotating sensors. They carried weapons that seemed to be made of living metal, writhing and reshaping themselves as the hunters moved. Rixer's personal guard, Lena breathed. The most lethal hunters in the collective. Reed pulled them behind a fallen tree as one of the hunters turned their way. "Can they see through your camouflage?" "Not easily, but," she broke off, hands clutching her abdomen. A soft blue glow pulsed beneath her skin. "The child," she gasped. "The stress is accelerating the gestation. We have hours at most, not days." Reed's mind raced. They were cut off from the tunnel, the cabin was gone, and Lena was going into labor. The hunters were closing in, and the drones. The drones. An idea struck him. "Your wrist device," he whispered. "Can it interface with their technology?" Lena nodded. "Basic commands only. Their security. Could you reprogram a drone? Just one?" She studied him, understanding dawning in her color-shifting eyes. "If I could get close enough. But the risk. Less risky than staying here." Reed pointed to a dense thicket nearby. "Hide there. I'm going to get their attention." Before she could protest, Reed stood and fired 3 shots into the air. The hunters spun toward the sound, their weapons morphing into more aggressive configurations. Reed ran, making enough noise to ensure they'd follow. Behind him, he heard their strange language, followed by the whir of pursuit. He led them away from Lena's position, deeper into the forest where the drones were still searching. A blast of purple energy struck a tree beside him, vaporizing it instantly. Reed dove and rolled, coming up behind a boulder. Another shot forced him to move again. The hunters were hurting him, he realized. Playing with him. Then he heard it, the high whine of a drone approaching. Just one, separated from the others. He left cover, making himself an obvious target. The hunters took the bait, all 3 moving to cut off his escape. The drone descended through the canopy, scanners targeting Reed. At that moment, Lena appeared behind it, her camouflage dropping as she pressed her wrist device against the drone's surface. Purple energy crackled. The hunters fired. Reed dropped. And the drone exploded in a blinding flash of light. When Reed's vision cleared, the hunters lay unconscious, their armor systems overloaded by the feedback pulse Lena had programmed into the drone. But Lena herself was on her knees, face contorted in pain. "The child," she said as Reed reached her. It comes now. Above them, more drones were converging on their position. And in the distance, a larger ship was descending through the clouds. They were out of time, and their options were running out. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of two civilizations. Reed half-carried Lena into a shallow cave as the massive ship descended. Her skin was glowing brighter now, pulses of blue light rippling across her body. The child was coming, and there was nothing they could do to slow it. The device, Lena gasped, removing her translator. It can be modified into a beacon. But I need both hands free. Reed took the device. Under Lena's panted instructions, he began rewiring it, using his Forest Service multi-tool to access its alien circuitry. Above them, the ship landed. Heavy footsteps echoed through the forest. "Well done, little princess." The voice spoke perfect English, dripping with cruel amusement. "A magnificent chase. But it ends now." Command Chief Rixer stepped into view, tall, aristocratic, his armor more ceremonial than practical. 24 guards flanked him, weapons ready. "Surrender the child," Rixer continued, "and I'll make your death painless. Resist." Purple energy crackled along his guards' weapons. Reed raised his rifle, knowing how futile it was. "Stay back." Rixer laughed. "Ah, the primitive defender. Touching. But do you truly understand what you're protecting? The genetic memories that child carries, the power it represents." "I understand enough," Reed replied, buying time as he continued working on the beacon behind his back. "I understand you murdered her mate. Staged a coup. And now you're trying to kill a mother and her unborn child. Seems pretty clear-cut to me." "Politics requires sacrifice," Rixer began, but cut off as Lena screamed. The blue glow intensified, illuminating the entire cave. "Now!" Lena yelled. Reed slammed the modified translator against the cave wall. It erupted in a burst of energy that shot skyward, a signal that cut through all interference. Rixer's guards opened fire. Reed dove for cover, returning fire with his rifle. The bullets didn't penetrate their armor, but the impacts staggered them. Lena's camouflage system created multiple false images of her, confusing their targeting. "Enough." Rixer raised his hand. "Kill them both." A new sound cut through the chaos, a high-pitched keen that made everyone freeze. From the cave, a smaller cry answered. The child had arrived. Rixer smiled triumphantly. "Perfect timing. Take them." The sky exploded. 3 massive ships dropped out of cloaking directly overhead, their designs similar to Lena's but bristling with weapons. A voice thundered across the battlefield. "Command Chief Rixer. You are guilty of treason against the collective. Surrender or be destroyed." "The Loyalists," Lena breathed, cradling a small, glowing form against her chest. "Right on time." Rixer's guards looked to their leader. His face contorted in rage. "Never. The old ways die today." He raised his weapon toward Lena and the child. Multiple things happened at once. Reed tackled Rixer, disrupting his aim. The Loyalist ships opened fire, their weapons precisely targeting and disabling Rixer's guards. And the newborn child glowed like a miniature sun, a pulse of pure energy radiating outward. When it touched Rixer, he screamed, not in pain, but in terror as the genetic memories within the child revealed every detail of his crimes directly into his mind. The battle was over in seconds. Rixer and his forces lay subdued, their weapons destroyed. Armored figures from the Loyalist ships secured the area as a distinguished-looking alien hurried to Lena's side. "First speaker," he bowed. "We feared we had lost you." "You almost did," Lena replied, then looked to Reed. "If not for this brave human." Reed lowered his rifle as the Loyalists regarded him with obvious interest. The child in Lena's arms cooed, its eyes shifting through impossible colors as it reached toward him. The future of both their worlds had just changed forever. 1 year later. Reed stood on his rebuilt cabin's porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in familiar golds and purples. The forest had recovered well, no sign remained of the battle that had changed everything. His radio crackled, standard Forest Service traffic about trail conditions and weather reports. But at precisely 9 p.m., it would switch to a different frequency, one that connected to a very special satellite. Right on schedule, a familiar voice filled the channel. "Greetings, Guardian Reed." "Hello, first speaker," he smiled. "How's the little one?" "Growing strong," Lena replied. "The genetic memories have fully integrated. She asks about her Uncle Thomas's often." The title still amused him. After the battle, the collective had officially named him Guardian of the Air, the first human to hold an alien political position. It came with certain privileges, including regular communications with the moon base and updates on the dramatic changes happening above Earth's atmosphere. Rixer's trial concluded, Lena continued. His confession, combined with the memories my daughter revealed, left no doubt. He and his conspirators will spend their lives in isolation. And the policy of contact with Earth? Proceeding carefully. Your governments have been, understandably cautious. But having a respected forest ranger vouching for us has helped enormously. Reed chuckled. His debriefing with human authorities had been intense, but his straightforward account of protecting a mother and child, regardless of species, had resonated with the right people. The first public contact is scheduled for next month, Lena said. We would be honored if you would attend, both as guardian and as friend. Reed watched a shooting star trace across the sky, though nowadays, he wondered if each light above was natural or something more. I'd be honored, he replied. Though I hope this doesn't mean more spacecraft crashing in my forest. Lena's musical laugh filled the channel. No promises. My daughter has expressed interest in learning Earth's forest management techniques when she's older. You may find yourself with an alien in turn. I look forward to it, Reed said, and meant it. Someone needs to teach the next generation to take care of both our worlds. The radio crackled as Lena's daughter joined the conversation, her translator struggling to keep up with her excited babbling about Earth animals, trees, and her plans to visit. Reed settled into his porch chair, smiling as he listened to the future of both species chattering away. Above him, the stars emerged one by one. Somewhere up there, changes were spreading through the collective, inspired by one small child and the proof that different species could help each other, trust each other, and become family. His forest had gotten a lot bigger, Reed reflected. But that just meant more to protect, more to nurture, more to share. And he wouldn't have it any other way. Uncle Thomas, the child's voice drew him back. Tell me again about the night Mother's ship crashed. Reed smiled and began the story, one that would be told on two worlds for generations to come. It was a dark night in October, and the thunder that woke me wasn't thunder at all. The end.